And at this point, you still don't even know who these people are in the back of the
I
helicopter.
have no idea who they are. Didn't matter to me. It's, there were 10 Americans that needed to be rescued. Wouldn't matter who they were. It's either he's telling me we need to rescue these people. We're going to rescue them.
Well, man, Tony, it's great to see you again, man. I was just out there down in Fort Lauderdale a couple months ago, checking out your S-76 and your air ambulance program that you got going on down there in Fort Lauderdale. You you definitely do things a little bit differently down there. Some things better, and some things similar to the way other people's do, but some things are a lot different. A lot of that has to do with your aircraft and kind of your business model, but also the fact that you guys fly out to the Bahamas. We'll talk more about that later, but like I don't know, man. Start at the beginning. How did you get involved in this world?
Well, it all started when I decided I had enough of working for other people, and I started to look for something else to do. So I was looking at buying a car wash. I already had my private detective agency going, and I just happened to come across an ad for 135 operations for sale. And I says, well, I always wanted to have my own 135 operation. Let's see what we got here. So I looked through all of them, and I saw this one picture of a old airplane, and it said, fly to the Bahamas, enjoy your retirement, run your 135 like a vacation. And I said, well, that sounds pretty interesting. So I eventually called the guy up, and I says, can you give me some information about the company, how much you asking for it and everything? And he told me. And I says, all right, let me get back to you. I called a friend of mine who does financing. And I says, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to do it. And he says, all right, let me start working on it. Send me your tax returns, send me everything. Uh, about a month later, COVID hit. Everything came to a complete screeching stop. I stopped pursuing the company because I'm like, I don't even know if we're going to be alive next week the way we're talking here. So let's kind of calm down with buying something at this point. So a month or two went by, and things seemed to be okay. Things to be settling out with the COVID situation. So I called him back up again, and I says, still for sale? Yeah, it's still for sale. It's okay. Job went a little crazy that I worked for. They laid off about 95% of the people that worked. They only kept 5 pilots out of 30. We had 15 helicopters. So it kept 5 people, just the top 5 management people, and I was one of them. So we basically had to do the work of 30 pilots with 5 people. We ended up getting a six just to make it so we could actually operate more than one helicopters at a time, 2 helicopters, 3 helicopters. And then we started on a 7 day a week, 14-hour a day schedule. Went on for about 8 months. I was pretty much at the end of my rope at that point, and I says, I gotta do something here. I cannot keep this pace. So my first two,
What kind of service was that?
135 operation in New York City. We were a large helicopter operation, probably one of the largest, flying people back and forth, and everybody was trying to escape New York City. And
Oh, I got you. So like VIP, private transport, stuff like that.
yes, exactly. What happened was I called the guy back and I said, I'd like to come down and look at the place and look it over because at that point I had decided I'm done here. And I went on, and my first two, now no days off for 8 months, 14 hours a day, every single day for 8 months, causing a huge problem at home for me uh, because my kids were with me and I'm not home 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. Got to be pretty messy at the house. So uh, my first 2 days said, we're going to start letting some people have some days off. What 2 days would you like? I'd like Monday and Tuesday because that was the next days. Uh, and they said, okay, you have Mondays and Tuesdays off. I immediately booked my ticket for Florida. There was Saturday night. Sunday night, I went to Florida. Monday morning, I was standing here, looked at the place. I said, okay, I'll buy it. Uh, and then he said, well, I'm not too sure I want to sell it at this point. I started, I'm like, you made me
Oh,
come
I bet.
down here.
I bet.
I'm here. I said, so I want to buy the place. And he said, okay, uh, I'm not sure I'm going to sell it to you. He says, I think I'm going to sell it to somebody else. I said, well, did they give you any money? No. Well, I'm going to give you the money right now. I'm going to give you a deposit. Well, I still think I'm going to sell it to them. And I got up and I just bit my tongue and I said, good luck to you. And I shook his hand and I walked out the door fuming. And I went back and I said, I'm going to figure out a way to put that company out of business. You've got my attention now. So I went to look at buying another 135 in the area so I could concentrate on putting them out of business. I was sitting in New York City. It was a Saturday morning. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. There wasn't one person out on the street. I was waiting for a celebrity we were picking up to take him home. Uh, and the phone text message arrived. It was a evaluation of the company. I said, why are you sending me this? You said you're selling it to somebody else. Well, they never came up with the money. All right. Still the same amount of money. And I'm ready to go. Was send me an LOA and we'll get going. I go, no, you send me an LOA. And if I like it, I'll sign it. If not, you can keep the damn thing for all I care. So that's what we did. We signed the LOA and that started the whole thing. About 6 months later, I was at closing.
And that purchase was for Tropic Air Charters, right? Which is not the helicopter company, but this was just the first part of coming down here, right? With Tropic Air Charters.
Tropic Air Charters. That's correct. So it was four
So I
airplanes.
mean, you've been flying S-76s and helicopters for the New Jersey State Police, and you've been flying celebrities around. And what do you know about flying twin-engine small light aircraft across the Atlantic Ocean out to the
I
Bahamas?
knew absolutely nothing. Yeah, I knew nothing. But in once we signed an LOA, every day off I had, I flew to Florida and I sat there and I learned about the planes. I learned about the company. I learned I would sweep the floors. I washed the airplanes. I watched the mechanics. We worked in the office and I just learned the company for the 6 months we were in the process of the financing. And everybody thought I was just a friend of theirs that would come in and help them out a couple of days a week. But I was, of course, going to be the owner of the company. So we finally got to closing, and I went to closing, and I came back to the office the same day, just like I did every other day. And when I walked in the door, they said, "Hi, boss." And I said to the people that I bought it from, I says, "I thought you were going to keep this quiet." They go, "Well, you bought the company, so now we told everybody the company's sold." So all the people I had been working with for 6 months that thought I was just a guy that swept the floors and washed the airplanes, now I own the company. So they were
Sounds
all,
like a rough version of like
and that's
Undercover Boss
exactly
or
what they
something like
said.
that.
They said, "Wow, I'm glad we were nice to you." I said, "I'm glad for you that you were nice to me too, because now everybody still has a job." But
Yeah.
I learned a lot. 6 months of on the job training. I learned as much as I can about the 135 operation. I learned how to dispatch the planes. I learned about the general declarations, how to enter and leave the country with the customs. So I learned a lot of international. It's an intricate business. They'd been in business for 30 years before I got there. So I basically took over a 30-year company, which still lent a lot of credibility to it. And at that point, we went on, and everything was going great. We were having a gangbuster. As soon as I walked in the door, everything was going good. I ended up buying two more airplanes, went up to six airplanes inside of about 6 or 8 months. And how it started with
So what's kind of like the main business for these charters? Is it, you know, shipping people and goods just back and forth to the Bahamas? Is that what it
that's
is?
correct. We do a lot of vacationers that go out there for months at a time. They bring 1,000 pounds of supplies with them: food, clothing, repair items. We were shipping large planes full of cargo out to different islands. So we do both. It's a mix of both. However, needs to be done. The planes are very versatile, so you could send cargo and people at the same time. You could send all cargo. You could send all people. Sometimes large families go out there. We could do 9 seats in the airplane. Just have to make sure we're within the parameters of the airplane and we're good to go.
So are you also flying these as well, or are you fixed wing rated? Are you a fixed wing pilot?
I am fixed wing, but I'm not a multi engine fixed wing. So I was single engine commercial
I got you.
fixed wing license. So my job was really not to fly the airplanes. I would go with the airplanes just to observe and see what happens on the other side because I'm trying to get a better view of what's happening. So every once in a while, if we had cargo space or a space for an extra person, I would go out there and meet the people, learn, check the islands out, see what it's all about. And that was basically it. We were going like gangbusters. And uh, one day I got a call from one of the pilots, and he said, I have a passenger here. I think he's having a stroke, and I'm afraid to put him in the airplane. I don't want him to die in the airplane. I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, just sit tight. Where are you? And he told me, and I says, let me get you an air ambulance out there and get you some help. Okay. So I started calling around.
So this pilot, he's out in the Bahamas with this patient.
He's out in the Bahamas on an island where there's no medical, nothing. There's nothing there. It's just people and houses, which is pretty common out in the Bahamas. 700 islands. There's 3 hospitals, and they're on 2 islands. So 698 islands without hospitals, but they have people on most of them. So I started calling around. I called around about maybe 10 or 15 different air ambulance companies, told them what I had, and they're like, "No, we're busy. No, we can't get out there. It's not possible. What's their insurance? They got to pay up front." Now, I had never dealt with an air ambulance company before, so I didn't know what the parameters were to get an air ambulance. I'm used to the EMS system here in the United States. You pick up the telephone, you call for help, somebody shows up, they're there, they're on the way. I wasn't used to this where you got to pay ahead of time, you got to get all the money, you got to get their insurance, you got to do. So finally, I got to one, and he says, "Look, all right, we'll come out, but it's going to be we'll be out there Sunday." And I said, "It's Thursday. What am I supposed to do with the guy till Sunday?" "Well, send him to the hospital." I said, "There is no hospital. There's nowhere to go." "Well, it's the best we can do." So I ended up finding someone with their own private plane that would be willing to put him in the plane and take him to the United States. And that's how I got him out of there. Didn't think anything of it. Wasn't looking for any money on it. I just wanted to get this guy some help. So my guy came back and explained to me what happened. I said, "All right." So the next day or two, I spent researching, finding where's the local helicopter air ambulance program. There's got to be one here that handles the Bahamas. Turned out there isn't one. There was never one. None. So I went into the office the next day and I said to Ed, my VP, I said, "We're changing the direction of the company today. We're going to be a helicopter air ambulance company also." And he said, "What? What?" I said, "That's what we're going to do." I said, "I'm going to start working on it right now."
Just like that.
So I called up some people that I
Wow.
know that sell helicopters. I told them exactly what I want. This is what I'm looking for. Find me a medical helicopter, and this is the type of helicopter I want, a S-76. I don't want anything else because I want some speed and some range and some reliability. I have flown them for almost 40 years, so I know everything about the Sikorsky. I've flown every model that there is, so it was a very comfortable fit for me. I was very
Where
confident.
was the majority of your S-76 time? Was that with the state police?
I did a lot of everything. For the New Jersey State Police, who I worked for, I flew there for 21 years as a helicopter pilot out of my 28-year career. And we flew S-76s almost from when I got there. Our first one we purchased in 1986. That was for transport of the governor around. And then 2 years later, we started a Medevac program, and 76 was the aircraft of choice. So we were flying 76s in the Medevac program. It took a year to actually get the aircraft constructed and delivered. So 1989, up until I retired, we were flying S-76s. And we used them for VIP transport, mostly Medevac, and we did law enforcement with them also. So as many a times I flew the chief executives around, and then the next day we'd be flying Medevac. And then during Medevac, if a call came in, a police call, and I'd be chasing people down the street with an S-76. Yeah, pretty interesting.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
absolutely nuts.
it was it was pretty crazy.
So I mean, at the time, these are dual pilot aircraft. Are you flying B models? Is that what they were flying at the time?
There were B models. We flew two pilots all the time. Obviously, we could fly one pilot with them, but we chose to do two pilots.
And then what was the med crew made up of? Was it two nurses or a nurse and a paramedic?
We had either a combination of two nurses, either critical care nurses with were nurse paramedics, or two paramedics, but mainly it was a nurse paramedic. There was a nurse paramedic mix. And I took that exact model and I created it
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
So everything I did for 21 years in the aviation bureau there, I created the same thing here, which is apparently quite different than everybody else does. But it's basically a clone of the New Jersey program.
So that's amazing stuff. So when you started this company, the Tropic Air Rescue part of your goal wasn't to be doing scene flights in southeastern Florida or something like that. You started this 100% with the mindset of I'm going to use this helicopter to extract time sensitive patients from the Bahamas, strokes, heart attacks, major trauma, stuff like that, and then bring them back to the United States. Right? I mean, that's the main mission. It's not so much to do the scene flights. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's pretty unique here in Florida. You can't respond to emergency calls within the state of Florida on scene unless you have what's called a COPCN, Certificate of Public Need and Convenience. They are only issued by the counties, and the counties all have their own county-run EMS helicopter programs. So basically, it's impossible to compete with the county because they're the ones who issue the COPCNs, and you will not get one. So I knew from the very beginning we would not be doing scenes in the state of Florida. So I let that go. That was really not an important thing, or not even a possibility. I'm not going to fight an entire county with unlimited resources. I'm just a startup at this point. But we are allowed to
Right,
do
right.
interfacilities from hospital to hospital without any such COPCN. So that's what we do. We do, if a call comes in from a hospital to transfer to another hospital, we can do those. We do them now. And we stand by for operations in the Bahamas. Our main focus is the Bahamas.
And all of this is still being done under an FAA Part 135 certificate in the United States, right?
Yes, Part 135, but we have a helicopter air ambulance certificate and op specs, which is, I found out, the hardest op spec to obtain in the FAA. So when I did this, it took me 2 years to obtain the aircraft, purchase them, and you can't start your certificate process until you have an aircraft. So it took me a year to purchase the aircraft. And then once I got that, it took me a year to get the certificates added, or the op specs added to my current certificate. So that finally happened in December of 23 when I got everything all set. The FAA gave me the final stamp and I was good to go. And then I had to hire all the medics, get the medical director on board, set all the protocols, get the state licenses to handle that. That took another couple of months to get everybody in process and in place. And then we eventually, March 1st of 2024, I said, today's the day. We're going to start working March 1st. So I started the website like a week before. It was all set to go, but you're not allowed to advertise until you're ready to operate because people are going to call you. And if you're not ready to operate, really, what are you doing? You shouldn't be advertising out there. So that's where we started. March 1st, 2024.
Yeah, and so this is your website right here.
That's our website.
I mean, that's a pretty cool picture of the F-76. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So I know there's a lot of membership programs for air ambulances across the country, but this is a little different. This is almost more like travel insurance for people who go out to the Bahamas, right? So you have a lot of members and people who purchase memberships from you.
Yes. So I looked at everything that's happened in the last 30 years there, and people have told me they've tried to start this program and they tried to get government involvement. They tried to do it privately. They tried to get private money to do it. And I said, okay, well, you know what we're going to do? Again, hearkening back to the New Jersey, how we did it in New Jersey, uh, I said a membership program is the way to go. Now, in New Jersey, they charged $1 on every car registration to pay for the helicopters. Well, obviously, we don't have the ability to levy taxes from a company, and there's no government involvement with this program. So, in order to replace taxes, I created a membership program, and the membership program supports the operation of the helicopters. So there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes on, as you know, when you came here. There's a lot of money that's involved every month to pay the bills. Even if we don't fly, we're still ready to go. People are standing here, they're ready to go. The helicopter's ready, the pilots are ready, the medics are ready, the doctors are ready. Everybody's ready. But if you don't get any flights, we start sliding backwards very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we often,
Yeah.
say in the air ambulance HEMS world that, sometimes people, I mean, oftentimes people complain about the price and things are very expensive with the reimbursement. Uh, but one of the things that we always say is that, so much of the cost is in the readiness. It's sitting around waiting for an emergency. It's just like the fire department. It costs millions and millions of dollars, and it's not because you're just paying people to do something that's very expensive. It's the cost of readiness, like you said earlier, of pick up the phone and they're going to be there. Being ready is expensive.
Right. And they're sitting right now and right outside my door. The office is here and everyone's here, ready to go. Aircraft's ready. Meanwhile, the mechanics are in the hangar working on the other aircraft. We're in constant rotation, moving the aircraft in and out. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you never see until you just pick up the phone and you call for help and help comes. And that's how I designed the system.
So then you do all this work, you invest in all of this money, all of this time, all of this infrastructure into this, new company. You hired all these people, did all the training, got the medical director, got all the licenses, and March 1st, you turn on the on air sign and say we're ready for business, and the calls just start rolling in.
Ready to
I'm
go.
sure, right?
And then I started looking at the phone and the phone doesn't ring because nobody knows we're here because there's never been a helicopter air ambulance program in the Bahamas. So I have to get the word out. So I'm calling people. I'm trying to let them know. I call doctors out there. I call homeowners associations. They're all trying to figure out who are these guys? Are they real? What do you mean there's a helicopter? We've never had a helicopter before. So that's how we are. And the phone never rang. So I was just, okay, it's going to take a while. And I know from New Jersey when we started the program, it took a couple of years to get that program up to a steady amount of call volume. Because even though we were a state program, we had to get the fire departments and the police departments and the rescue squads to actually know that we were there and we were available to them and how to use us. That took a couple of years. I remember months with no calls in the beginning. And then like we'd get a call and we'd like, oh my God, we got a call. And we'd go do the job and we'd come back and we're like, oh man, if we just got one call a week, that would be fantastic. And then eventually it became one call a week. And then it was like, imagine if we got two calls a week. And then it was, imagine if we got one call a day. And then it just started happening. Imagine if we got two calls. And then how about what do we do calls at night? No one ever calls us at night. And then we started getting calls at night. But we only had a day shift, was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And at night there would be no availability. And then we started getting calls at night. And we said, okay, well, let's create a night shift. And there the program was born.
So what you're saying is the phone literally never rang. I mean, did it ever ring? Did you ever get any business? Are you guys still in business or what?
No, it never rang. The first time it rang was Sunday night at 7:30 at night on March 10th. And like I said, the gentleman on the phone told me he was from Congressman Mills' office. Well, I'd never heard of Congressman Mills. There's 435 congressmen out there. And he said, we need you to go to Port-au-Prince to rescue 10 Americans. Can you do it? And I said, who is this? I thought it was one of my friends playing games with me, you know, because I'm watching the news. Haiti's a mess. They're killing people in the streets. They're literally burning them alive and eating them. It's a bizarre scene as I've ever seen in my life. And he says, no, I assure you, this is real. We need you to go to Port-au-Prince and we need you to go right now. Can you go? And I said, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And he said, you'll do it? Like he was in shock. Well, of course, come to find out later on down the road, I was the 13th helicopter company that was called. The other 12 said, no, they're not going to do it. And I just said yes. And I said yes, not because of anything more than I thought I could do it. I mean, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And I just treated it like a medevac. I've gone to places I've never been to in the middle of the night. I've landed there and rescued people. Of course, we've had ground people to kind of guide us in, and we get the coordinates so we know where we're going. But this was a little different since I have to travel through 5 countries to reach Haiti, and I have to do this in the middle of the night. So it's a covert operation, so we don't get shot down, get captured and eaten by the guy named Barbecue. So
I mean, that's absolutely insane, dude. You're telling me that you're going to take this helicopter out over the Atlantic Ocean. You're not going to have to hop, skip, and jump across. I don't know if I can't remember if it was 4 or 5 countries. You're going Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, Dominican Republic, Haiti.
mhm,
You're going to have to go to all these countries and coordinate fuel,
that's
coordinate
correct.
permission to land in
I've never done it
in a different
before.
country. You're going to have to coordinate all that and through a rotor wing and with very little time, and you don't even really know
No,
who you're rescuing or what the kind of the details of the mission are. You just know that this congressman has asked you for help, and you said, okay, I'm here to help. Let's make it happen, without even knowing the
nope.
details.
I had no further details than it's 10 people trapped in an orphanage in downtown Port-au-Prince. And I said, okay, um, the congressman's coming with me. Yes, he's coming with me. Okay, you need to get him down here to Fort Lauderdale. In the meantime, I'll prep the aircraft and I'll get everything ready. I'll start the paperwork. I'll get everything going. Start making the phone calls down the line because I have to coordinate, like you just said, with fuel in Nassau. We're going to Nassau, the Bahamas, the only thing open at night for fuel. From there to Turks and Caicos. So I've got to call Turks and Caicos, and they've got to stay open for us. And I've got to convince them to stay open for us. And then from there, we're going to Puerto Plata and Dominican Republic. And when we get there, I'll evaluate what we have, and we'll decide where we're going on or not. So the congressman finally showed up, introduced myself to him. We got in the helicopter. He had an aide with him. He was a special forces, Delta Force guy to come with us to assist us in this. And it was myself and a co-pilot, guy Benny Matos, who I flew with for many years in the state police. He moved down here to Palm Beach. And I says, hey, Benny, I'm going to need some help. You want to help me out to start off with? He's like, yeah, Tony, no problem. I'll do medevacs with you.
Hey, bro, you want to fly across the Caribbean to Haiti with me in the middle of this shit?
Oh no. So when I called him, I says, "All right, Benny, we got a job. We got to go." He says, "Okay, where are we going?" I figure we're going to the Bahamas. I go, "We're going to Port-au-Prince, Haiti." And he goes, "Haiti? Are you sure, Tony?" I says, "Yeah, we're going to Haiti." So he says, "All right, I'll be down." I says, "It takes him an hour to get here, but the congressman had to come from New Smyrna, so he had to rent a plane to get down here because I couldn't fly up there, fly back, and get the. It was just too much. So in the meantime, I had a lot to do to prepare for this. Strip out the helicopter, make it as light as possible, get all the medical equipment out, the stretchers, everything. Get everything, strip that thing down as far as I could to get it as light as I could to get it down there. So he got here, everybody got here, and my Ed, the vice president of the company, says to me, "Tony, are you sure you want to do this?" He says, "I'm watching the news in Haiti, and they're killing people in the streets, and they're eating them, they're burning them and eating them." And he says, "If you get captured, this company's over. You're the only one that knows how to run the company, how to create this. You created this entire thing. If you go down, it's all over. The whole company's dead. Everybody loses their job. The whole thing is over." And I said, "Ed, I have to go. I mean, you need help. This is what we do. And this is how we do it. We don't say no when people need to be saved. We have to go. We'll just trust in God and hope that we get through this." And he just shook his head and he says, "Okay, you're the guy." So off we went. We went to Nassau. We gassed up, followed our flight plans because everything in the Bahamas at night is an IFR flight plan. There's no VFR helicopter flying at night. It's not permitted. So we filed all our flight plans down to Turks and Caicos. By the time we got to Turks and Caicos, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I had to bribe them. Uh, they said, "Well, it's going to cost this much to stay open." And then when I finally told them we won't be there till 3 o'clock in the morning, they're like, "Well, we're not going to wait." I go, "You have to wait. This is a critical mission. We really need you to go." And I said, "Look, I'll pay you double what you want if you just stay and wait for me." And they said, "You'll pay us double?" And it was already $10,000 for them to stay open that late. So $20,000 to get them to stay there. So they stayed and paid them their $20,000, and we went on from there to Puerto Plata. Landed there. It was like 5:30 in the morning, and the sun was coming up. And I said, "We're going no further than this right now." I says, "I cannot risk going in there in the middle of the daytime. It will be sitting ducks for them. They'll be waiting for us, and I'm not going to go in." So we sat down, we got a hotel, we relaxed for the day as best as possibly could because the phone never stopped ringing the entire time. And around 7 o'clock that night, I sat down with the State Department and the congressman, and they basically told me, "Tony, uh, anything happens, you're on your own. We're going to disavow any knowledge of you being there. We're not coming to rescue you. There's no one coming for you. So if you manage to get through this and you make it back to the Dominican Republic, we will be waiting for you with open arms. But if something happens
Man,
and
that's
you,
absolutely crazy. I mean, they're telling you
they're
that
telling
because
me,
Haiti's obviously, even though it's fallen apart. I mean, they're a sovereign nation, right? So you really can't just be flying aircraft into a sovereign nation and landing, unannounced and stuff like that. But you've got your congressman with you. You've probably got, I don't know, maybe some level of diplomatic immunity, at least on the American side. I don't know about the Haiti side, but I mean, I got to imagine you're feeling some level of patriotism and wanting to do what's right and at least right by the Americans that you're trying to get out, right? And doing something good, for our country. And you probably didn't know this at the time, but Mills obviously, he's kind of been in the news a little bit lately. He's got some stuff going on, but nonetheless, he not a very well known guy back at the time that this happened a year ago, at least. Politically, he's a career military guy. He seems like pretty hardcore and everything, but it sounds like he wasn't getting the support from the federal level, which I guess he cited, the presidential level,
mm-hmm.
and so. sounds like he kind of like Charlie Wilson's War, kind of took this into his own hands. And it's not the first time he's done this, right? I mean, I think he did this
Right.
something similar in Afghanistan and
Israel. Yeah.
and in Israel. I mean, he's done this
Hmm.
before, right?
Yes. And believe me, the weight was very heavy on my shoulders at that point because they're basically telling me, you're on your own. If you do this and you're successful, we will be waiting for you and we will support you in every way. But if you don't make it, don't expect help. No one's coming for you. So, I said, okay, I understand. I understand the ramifications of what we're about to do. I said, so I told Benny, I says, Benny, under no circumstances will we be captured unless they kill me in the helicopter. And I mean, by gunfire, we will continue on. If I get killed, just keep flying. Don't stop. Do not stop the mission. Just get it back to Dominican Republic. And he said, okay. I said, we're good. We're good. We'll get this done. So that night, we flew from there over to Santo Domingo, gassed up, and then I waited. I waited for the time. And the Dominicans had us under surveillance the entire time because they're like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? So there was constant eyes on us the whole time. And they knew through the State Department that we were here, but they didn't know anything more about why we were here and what we were doing because I refused to tell them anything because I said any information or intel leaks from us, it's just a way for us to be intercepted when we get there to Port-au-Prince. So the entire mission, Benny and I talked about it, but I never gave him the full details of how I was going to accomplish this. I just said, we're going to do this. I have a go, no go point. When we reach that, we'll decide whether we go or we're turning around and coming back to Santo Domingo. So he said, okay. He said, I trust you, Tony. Well, we've flown together for many years. So we went out to the runway around 2:30 in the morning down there, and I called the tower and I said, it's an international airport. There's airplanes moving all over the place. So I said, it's taxiway so-and-so. We want to depart westbound along the coastline at or below 500 feet on a diplomatic mission. And there's silence on the radio. The radio comes to a complete stop. And they said, what do you want to do? I said, departure westbound at or below 500 feet along the coast. We're on a diplomatic mission headed westbound. Now, there's only one thing west of Dominican Republic is Haiti. So all of a sudden, the controller says, you're clear for takeoff. And I looked at Benny and I said, oh my God, they're going to let us do this. So off we went. Now, I had never been to the Dominican Republic, let alone at night. The weather was probably about 500 feet, clouds, good visibility, maybe about 3 or 4 miles. And we're scooting along the coast, trying to keep the lights in sight because once you turn toward the blackness of the ocean, you're IFR. You can't see anything. So we're just pulling up the map, like any towers ahead of us, any wires crossing us, anything we have. So that's what Benny's job was, to just navigate us through this while I flew the mission along the coast. And we got to our point where my go, no go decision was. And I said, okay, we're going to go for it. He says, all right. So I called the congressman up. I said, we'll be there in 31 minutes. Alert the people at the landing zone to be ready for us in 31 minutes. When they hear the helicopter, blink all the lights in the house on and off. That's the only way I'm going to find them. He says, okay. So he went.
And when you say you call the congressman, where is he?
He's in the back of the helicopter, sitting behind me.
And the Delta Force guy is with him as well?
Sitting right next to him.
And so the congressman, he's sitting in the back with the Delta Force dude. And, there's kind of a bulkhead there on the S-76, so you really can't see them. But they're sitting back there. You guys are talking on your intercom. And the congressman or the Delta Force guy, they're in some type of contact with the people at the house that you're going to rescue, right? They can stay in contact somehow.
Text messaging. That's it. It's only text
Ah,
messages, no phone
wow.
conversation.
Wow.
And it's the easiest way to communicate. It's a little more difficult to get intercepted that way. At least I wasn't aware that anyone on the ground would have any sophisticated intercept communications because we're not dealing with government at this point.
So you're telling the
So
congressman through the intercom, "Hey, tell them to blink all the lights on and off in the house." And he's texting. You're telling me he's texting this to the people down in the house, these instructions.
right, no bags, passports only, blink the lights. That's it. Originally, I was going to do 2 runs in and out. I was going to take 5 people, come back, drop them off, and go back and get 5 people and come back. And then I calculated on our weight and balance. I said, you know what? I could do this in one trip if I lower the fuel load. I have enough to make it back to this airport just over the border in Dominican Republic if we do exactly, if everything goes well. I had everybody's weights. I knew exactly what we could accomplish, but I had to cut the fuel back in order to do it. So I only had enough fuel to do the mission, and that was it. There was no extra anywhere. So we got to that point, and I decided, okay, we're going to go. And I said to Benny, we're going to go and shut off all our lights, shut off all our tracking equipment, and up into the mountain pass we went. No communications with anybody because there is nobody to talk to. Uh, so I was basically steering the helicopter uh, through the mountains using a topography map on my iPad to get through where I thought everything was. And, those mountains are 8,000 feet on both sides of us, and we were not at 8,000 feet. So we get to where I think the city is in front of me, and I says, "You ready?" Yep. So we descended out of 6,000 feet, about 2,000 feet we broke out, and there was the city laid out in front. Fires everywhere, smoke. It was like something you see on an apocalypse movie. It was real. This was real. And it's happening right in front of us. We're here. We're in a foreign nation. I've never been here before. We're about to perform a rescue. Turned out it was the first international helicopter rescue ever launched from the United States into a foreign country to rescue Americans and come back. That was successful. Well, it would be successful. Wasn't successful at this point. We hadn't gotten anybody yet. So I descended down. I got right on top of the houses, and we're scooting along, all blacked out. No, no, nothing you could see. No lights on us. We got nothing. I don't have any NVGs. I don't have anything. I just got my 2 eyeballs, and we're flying, looking out the window. We get about We're about a mile away now. I'm watching the GPS click off to the coordinates. We get about 2/10 of a mile away from it. I turn to the left, maybe about 10 degrees. So whatever it's going to be on my right side so I could see it. And 1/10 of a mile, I look up and there's one house blinking on and off in the blackness. And I said to Benny, holy shit, we found it. Yeah. So I turned the helicopter sideways and I looked down over my shoulder, and there's the satellite image that I had, the landing zone. Exactly, I see it in my mind. There's the picture that they gave me. I see it, even though it's pitch black, I can see the landing area. I says, I had the landing area. He goes, are you going to do a recon? No, we're going straight in before they even realize we're here. So I turned, went straight down into the landing zone, about 10 feet up, 20 feet up. I turned the searchlight on so I could see, because from the pictures that I had of the landing zone, there was a lot of topography there. There were rocks, there were ditches, there were berms, trees, everything. So I came in as low as my nerve would get me, and then I needed some lights to see the last 25 feet to touch down to, so I wouldn't go into a ditch and then roll over. So as soon as we touched down, I gave the command to everybody, go. The doors popped open and 3 people got up. Benny got out, and the congressman and the special forces guy, Brian, he got out, and they ran to the house. They grabbed everybody. brought him right back to the helicopter. As soon as Benny got in and the door slammed, because I heard him slam the door in the back, so I knew everybody was in the back, and he slammed his door, I didn't even wait for anything. I just pulled pitch over the top of the tree, down into a valley, accelerated, and right back into the clouds. And we were gone. 67 seconds we were there because they were timing us back on the
67
other
seconds.
side.
Wow.
67 seconds. I was surprised it took that long because it felt like a lot less than 67 seconds. So back into the clouds.
And at this point, you still don't even know who these people are in the back of the helicopter.
I have no idea who they are. Didn't matter to me. There were 10 Americans that needed to be rescued. Wouldn't matter who they were. He's telling me we need to rescue these people. We're going to rescue them. We're going to go get them. And that's it. That's the mission. So we go back and we go to back into the Dominican Republic, back through the mountains, land in the Dominican Republic at the airport that's closed. It's 3:30 in the morning, almost 4 o'clock. And we taxi in and the security guards come out and they're like, "What are you doing here? The airport's closed. You're not allowed to be here." And Benny speaks fluent Spanish. So he's like, "We're on a diplomatic mission." And they're like, "What are you talking about, diplomatic mission?" And then the door pops open in the back and 12 people come rolling out the back of the helicopter. They're on their radio screaming for help. The police are coming. The customs, immigration, the airport, more airport security are coming. Now Dominican Foreign Affairs finds out that we're there and they're on their way. The State Department is on the way. Everybody is now coming because we just caused a major international incident on top of things. We just brought 14 people into a foreign country we didn't go in through the normal channels. It's 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, not normal. So before anything happens, I says to everybody, "Okay, everybody, let's get against the helicopter here, take a picture, because I have no idea what's about to happen when the authorities get here." So I scrunched everybody together. We took a couple pictures, took a picture of us with the congressman, took a picture of all the people we rescued, and then the authorities started showing up and they started separating everybody and taking them inside. When the Dominican Foreign Affairs office showed up, they were like, and the congressman's walking around with his black passport in the air and he's going, "Diplomatic immunity, diplomatic immunity." And I said, "Just keep talking, diplomatic immunity." And the Dominicans showed up and they said, "We love all Americans. There's nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be fine. You're all okay. We're good." So they took everybody and started processing them. In the meantime, my phone's ringing. And I pick it up, and it's the congressman's office. And I said, "Oh, we're good. We got everybody out. There's no holes in the aircraft. Nobody got shot. Everybody's safe. We're here." And he says, "Did you hear what happened?" I says, "Something else happened in the 40 minutes I was gone, besides the fact we violated the sovereign airspace of at least 2 nations, landed in a foreign country under fire, rescued 10 people, and then came back into another country and landed in another country, supposedly illegal at this point. What else could have happened in the 40 minutes we were gone?" He says, "Well, when you went in there, you were all blacked out, and they thought, who's this?" And they looked up and they saw the symbol on the side of the helicopter. And if you notice, I put the stars and bars on all my helicopters. That's my tribute to the military and to the job that they do for us.
Yep, I saw.
And they said they thought they were under attack by the United States government. And the prime minister has resigned. There's no government in Haiti. And I said, "You mean I overturned the government with a flyby?" And he says, "Don't say that again."
Oh my God.
I said, "Well,
oh no,
I'm not going to go on the news and say it to anybody, but there's the reality of what happened." So I hung up the phone and I kind of chuckled and I'm like, yeah, that was just another thing that happened.
That's intense, man. All right, you sent me some videos here, and I'm not sure which one of these I'm allowed to play, but let me try to click through.
I didn't
Yeah.
send you anything that's not allowed to play.
Come on, baby, just get over that tree.
You, you sound like you're excited to
That
get
was
over a tree. It's a short clip.
Yeah, well, that's when I left off out of the LZ, and I was just trying to get over the top of this tree that was next to us in the LZ, and then over and down and dive into the valley to get some airspeed, and then go back up into the
Right.
clouds. So that was
Yeah.
with 14
With
people in the helicopter, right?
14
Yeah,
people
exactly.
on board the aircraft as well, heavy as can be.
We were right at max gross weight at that point, and I knew it, but you know.
Okay, so what's going on in this video right here?
Couldn't ask for it better.
That was the special forces guy talking. He was recording this. That was at the Bahrain airport in Dominican Republic. That was where we landed. Baharona airport.
So you're out of Haiti airspace. Next, get you in the Dominican Republic. Then, get you guys home safe.
This was the congressman advising the people that we rescued that we were out of Haitian airspace and they were safe, and everything was good.
Boy, it's kind of hard to tell, but you could certainly see that these that these folks, or at least they sounded, the little bit that you can see, like they are extremely grateful to be up in that helicopter with you, and they're probably looking at the congressman and your Tropic Air helicopter is like, who the hell are these people? How did they find us? How did they get us? But this is so great. That's awesome. Okay, so this clip right here is like, it's only like 2 seconds long, but there's something kind of unique about it. What's going on? Let's watch this video and then tell me what's going on with it.
That was the Brian.
Okay, from his glasses.
Right. That was Brian, the special forces guy, had the glasses that were recording, and that was him jumping out of the helicopter, running toward the house where the people were to gather them up. That was the recording that he had on his glasses. It only recorded for a second or two.
So here's another one. Looks like it has the whole gang together. What's going on here?
And that was a congressman. That's Mitch Albom right there with the blue shirt. His wife is next to him.
Yeah, how'd you guys like it?
So now he's basically explaining. Yeah, everybody's joking about it. I've been to the Dominican Republic.
My God, did he say that the bitches were great?
Beaches were great. The beaches.
Oh, the beaches. That makes more sense. I got you.
No, the beaches were great.
Okay, so this guy right here, this is the congressman.
Yes, that's Congressman Mills.
And that's Mitch right there, right?
That's Mitch Albom right there. Right.
Yeah, how'd you guys like it?
The bitches were great.
And, speaking of Mitch, I mean, he's the big celebrity here. I mean, when did you come to find out who he was, or, kind of how this rescue got initiated and came to be?
When we were sitting in the lobby, when we were getting processed by immigration, I think it was Congressman Mills came over to me and he says, "You know who that guy is?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "That's Mitch Albom. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He runs the orphanage." I go, "Oh, that's Mitch?" Because I had heard them all day talking to Mitch. They were texting back and forth to Mitch. I thought Mitch was a security officer that was helping on the other side. But he turns out to be, he was the principal involved in the rescue on that side. And I was like, oh, okay. I still didn't know who he was. It meant nothing to me. I mean, it could have been 10 janitors in the back of the helicopter for all it mattered to me. It doesn't matter. I've saved thousands of people's lives throughout my career, and I never worried about who they were. They need to be helped. That's what we do.
Yeah, and it's crazy when you go down the rabbit hole about who Mitch is. He's definitely a somebody. He lives in the Detroit area. He was a sports columnist there, and then ended up writing a bestseller that just went through the roof. And I don't know, I think he's written 10, 15 more books, and fiction, nonfiction, novels since then. And, like you said, he's a super famous guy now, and super well known and super wealthy. and with that wealth probably comes a lot of,
Mhm.
people like congressmen. And, they even made a movie about him with the Tuesdays with Morrie movie. But anyway, from the way I understand it, Mitch is stuck down there in Haiti running this faith-based orphanage, which is super cool. I
Right.
mean, how cool is that to be able to go down there and spend your money to help probably the most impoverished children in the entire planet? Anyway, he's down there. The government starts to fall, and he loses communication somehow, but I don't know if he had a backup plan or what. But from what I understand, his friends or some kind of a colleague or friend that he had ended up
I need help.
calling the congressman in Detroit, who's Lisa McLean. And McLean tried to get some stuff done, and I guess it really didn't work out. And just imagine, she's probably sitting around in Washington. She's like, "How am I going to solve this problem? I got to get this dude out. This is a big constituent of mine. I got to get this dude out of Haiti." Who's that crazy special ops military guy I know down in Florida? Oh, right, Corey Mills. Yeah, he's well known to, like I said earlier, he went into Afghanistan, he went into Israel. I bet you he could do this. And so she calls up Corey. It's like, "Hey, Corey, can you get this dude out of Haiti for me?" And Corey somehow calls you, and the rest is history, right? I mean, that's absolutely wild. That's absolutely crazy story. But I guess there's something I'm kind of leaving out. Like, how did Corey Mills, him or his office, how did they actually get a hold of you? You weren't advertising, but for like 4 days so far, how did they even get a hold of you? How did they get your phone number?
I asked about it at the end, or after this was all over. I talked to the aide again, and I says, "How did you guys get my phone number?" And he says, "I talked to the pilot for the Red Bull helicopter because we called them too." And he says, "Nah," he says, "we can't do it." He goes, "But call this guy down in Fort Lauderdale. He might be able to help you out." And that's how I got the phone call. And I don't even know who the pilot is for the Red Bull helicopter. I don't think I've ever met him before. But, your reputation kind of goes around in circles. And that's how I got there. And then I found out we were the 13th helicopter company that got the call. They had called 12 other companies. And, out of all of them, I was the unicorn. I was probably the only one that could actually do this. I own the company. Flew the helicopter. I know how to do the mission. I've done this rescues at night many, many times. So, and I have the ability to say yes or no right now. So everybody else, who are you going to call? You think you're calling the owner of the company in the middle of the night to get this done? You're not. You're talking to a guy who works there, and he's like, "I'm not taking this chance." And then you call the owner, and the owner goes, "What are you, crazy? We're not going to Haiti." Oh, the answer is no. And then so forth, they go down the line. And then they came to me, and I'm the guy who makes all the decisions. I created this entire thing. So when they said, "Yeah, we need help," and yeah,
Oh man, that's absolutely nuts. And so let's take a look at what one of the news stories. There's a lot of news stories published on this, and they all kind of said something different. But I like this one because it's out of Detroit, because that's where Mitch was from. And so let's take a look at this one.
yeah.
Trapped in Haiti as political violence has overtaken the country tonight, Mitch Albom and 9 others have been rescued, thanks in large part to a Florida congressman. Michigan Congresswoman Lisa McLean announced the rescue during an Armed Services Committee hearing in D.C. earlier today.
Man, that's an absolutely crazy story. Let me jump ahead, because there was a phone call that Mitch had to the news organization that I think was just a couple days before you went in there and rescued them.
There's no planes, there's no boats, there's no way out. Everything's been shut down by the gangs.
Albom last week describing what is at best a volatile situation in Haiti, at worst deadly. There have been prison breaks, gangs roving the country. The prime minister is in Puerto Rico. It is chaos.
And again, that story is just it's so unbelievable. And like I said, that phone call that he had was just a few days before you actually went down there. And, Haiti hasn't always been the greatest country, but, they were a sovereign nation that had some form of functioning government. And from the time that phone call happened with Mitch that we just played, and the time that the congressman called you was just a few days. And in that amount of time, the entire government collapses. Right? I mean, the entire government collapsed, and that's what got them stuck there and needed to be rescued. and initiated the phone call from
Yes.
Corey, right?
And that's where we came in. And, you know, the last thing I expected to be was in Haiti. And we had just taken over a contract for Haiti Air Ambulance, which has been operating down there for a very long time. It's a 501c3 corporation, so it's a charity. And we had just taken over management of Haiti Air Ambulance in February, a month before this happened.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's the Bell 407 air ambulance that I
Right.
saw when I came down to visit. Right.
So
Okay.
about 3 weeks into taking over the company, or the management of the company, all hell broke loose. And I says, let's get that aircraft out of there. And so we took the aircraft and the people out, brought them back to Fort Lauderdale. And so the Haiti Air Ambulance was actually sitting here when all this happened. So there wasn't any way for me to dispatch the Haiti Air Ambulance in to rescue them. It would have taken 10 trips with a 407 to get it done. So that's why I decided to go down there with the Sikorsky and handle it. But when we were doing it, they said, "Would you like to go to Haiti and inspect the operation there?" I says, "No, I'm not. I don't plan on ever going to Haiti." Don't ever say never, because literally 2 weeks later, I was there at 3 o'clock in the morning, rescuing a bunch of people, and that's where I actually learned: don't ever say never. Because whatever you think is not going to happen, you can guarantee that somewhere it's going to happen. So don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, man. Never say never. Yeah, absolutely, man. But let's look at this video. This video is absolutely wicked. What's going on here in this?
This is a video that the security team that we had set this camera up on the wall next to the landing zone, and they just kind of sped it up, and it just goes through a quick idea of how we were getting everybody in and out of the landing zones, the people, because what you're seeing here is became a coordinated effort to rescue more people.
And so just to clarify, that thing that happened with Corey Mills, where he called you up and you guys went and rescued Albom, that was a United States State Department operation, right? And that was who was that contract with?
Right, through the federal, the Department of Emergency Management.
But then this one that you're talking about, where you had to go back in and rescue hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more people, that's now being run through the state of Florida and is kind of managed and oversaw by Governor DeSantis, right, through Florida. And now it's kind of a state level operation. So how did they even know who to get out?
They were all in Port-au-Prince, so they had set up a website through the Florida Department of Emergency Management that people that were there and needed rescue could sign on to this site, and then they would be vetted that they had passports and they were really Americans and they lived in Florida. And then once that was established, the security forces would go and retrieve them and bring them to the landing site at the intervals of the flights that we had scheduled. And we would pick them up and take them to Cap Haitian in the northern part of the country, where they were processed by immigration and put on jets and sent to Orlando Sanford Airport for repatriation.
So what you're telling me is that, people are always talking shit about how the government works, and, in all honesty, probably rightfully so. But we're always talking about how inefficient the government is. But what you're telling me is that once this moved from a federal operation to a state operation, the state of Florida was somehow able to create a website where people in Haiti, or maybe their family members, somebody would be able to go onto this website and say, "Hi, my name's Justin, and I live in Miami, and I'm stuck down here. Please come and get me." They would verify it. They would do all that, and then coordinate their rescue through you guys. And you're telling me that actually worked, like this government operation, the logistics of it. I'm not talking about the helicopter part, but just the information side. It worked. Like, how's that possible?
amazed. I have to tell you, the state of Florida has their stuff together. Obviously, from all the disasters that they face on a yearly basis, I've never seen a state more organized than the state of Florida. They do an amazing job.
You know, with the first rescue you did, you kind of have a lot of rebels or a lot of bad dudes out there trying to kill you guys, and that's why you had to sneak in under cover of dark. But this rescue effort, you know, you're doing during the daytime. Maybe things are a little bit are things a little bit more chill now, or are they are the bad guys down in Haiti, you know, letting you guys come in now? Are you running into issues? Like how's the second operation go?
Well, I'll just backfill you as to what happened during the middle of this. So, about 3 days into it, I got a call from emergency management in Florida, and they said, "Tony, what's going on down there in Haiti? You're not sending anybody back. We got all these jets lined up in Port-au-Prince. I mean, in Cap Haitian, and we don't see you bringing anybody back." And I said, "Well, they're not letting us do it. They won't let us go down to Port-au-Prince because we don't have this rescue permit that they keep talking about." So he said, "Oh, we're spending a lot of money. We're spending millions of dollars. We need to get some results." And I said, "Oh, you want some results?" I says, "Have the security team put a landing zone together. We'll be there in a half hour." And he says, "Well, I thought you said they're not going to let you do it." I said, "They're not going to let us do it. We're going to go anyway." So we taxi out to the runway, and I said, "Request permission. We're going down to Port-au-Prince." And they said, "Negative, you don't have a rescue permit." I said, "No, I have a rescue permit. We're good." They said, "No, you don't. You don't have a rescue permit." I go, "No, we're going to go anyway." So he says, "Are you going on pilot's discretion?" I says, "Yes, I'm going on pilot's discretion." And we took off. And we went down to Port-au-Prince and found the landing zone, landed, loading all the people. We had 14 women and children and maybe a man or two. It was a family that was trapped there for a wedding. They were down there for a wedding, and they all got trapped in the middle of this. So we went and retrieved them. And while they're loading them, and we get them loaded, a second group came up, and they started fighting with our security, trying to get on the helicopter. So my co-pilot is out there trying to calm things down, and they grab him, and they start to drag him away. And he's fighting with them. I'm on the phone with Tallahassee at the Emergency Operations Center, and I said, "We've got a little problem here." I says, "They have my co-pilot, and they're dragging him away. And if I don't intervene very soon, we're going to lose him, and I'm not going to be able to leave here. And I can't get out of the helicopter to help him because the helicopter's running, and I've got 14 people in the back of the helicopter." So I said, "I'm going to have to lift up and kind of burge into the crowd and try and get him released and scare everybody, and he'll run back to the helicopter, and we'll jump in and go." Just then, he rears back and punches one guy in the face. The guy lets him go. He runs back to the helicopter. He jumps in the door, and he slams the door, and he looks at me. He goes, "Go!" I said, I didn't need to hear that, but I knew we were going anyway. So I quick popped the collective, which threw a burst of air out and knocked over a bunch of people onto their backsides. They started rolling, and I said, "Okay, we got a little room here." And I picked up and flew away. And on our way back to Cap Haitian. Well, what I didn't realize is that the United Nations, it was one of their landing zones down in Port-au-Prince, and they had an observation post on the hill behind us, and they caught the entire thing on video, and they released that video immediately. It was live while it was going on, and the helicopters are being attacked in Port-au-Prince. Now, unbeknownst to me, they're having a press conference with the governor in Florida, and he's saying our pilots are being attacked, our helicopters are being attacked, we're not getting any support from the Haitian government. And it caused a huge problem in the State Department levels and all these other, because they're basically, the state of Florida is not the State Department. So they kind of inserted themselves in there, and they want to get their people out. They want to be their people, or they want them rescued. But they weren't feeling that they were getting the proper assistance. So little did I know, we're on our way back with these people, and we're just flying back, and we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. There's things happening behind the scenes that I don't know about. We go back to Cape Haitian and tell them we're 5 miles out inbound for landing, and they said negative, circle the field. I said, we can't circle the field, we need to come in and land. So he says, well, you took off illegally and you can't land now. Well, we have to land. We have nowhere to go. So clear the runway. We're inbound. So we land the helicopter and go taxiing in, and now shut down, and they're not happy with us, and they're all coming in force toward the helicopter, the Haitian authorities. So I jump out and I start filming them, and the door opens and 14 women and children get out, little baby toddlers and infants and arms and everything. And there's one video that I sent you of the people in the back of the helicopter, and then another picture I sent of, I had everybody line up afterwards and took a picture of everybody together. So when they see all these women and children get out, they kind of back off, and then they're not going to really have a problem for us. So we get everybody processed to get them on the jet, call up EOC in Tallahassee, tell them, okay, there's 14 people coming your way. They have news at Orlando Sanford. They closed the airport. The governor's waiting. Every news channel in the world is there waiting for these people to come back. They have a big greeting ceremony. In the meantime, we're in Haiti, and I said, okay, we're going to get our general declaration. We're going to go to Port-au-Prince for the night. And they said, no, you're not leaving. And I said, not leaving? Why? Well, you took off illegally and you landed illegally. We're going to have to fine you. And I said, all right. If you have to fine us in the middle of a rescue operation, we're just here to help. So if you feel a fine is necessary, how much is the fine? He says, it's $3,000. I says, all right, as long as I get a receipt for paying the fine, well, I'll pay the fine. I says, and I'll pay you $3,000 every time we take off and land if you let us continue with the rescue operation. I said, no, if you take off and land again without permission, we're going to arrest you, and we're going to confiscate the helicopter. And I said, again, we're only here to help you, but if you're not going to let us help you, I don't know what to say, but you have my attention at this point. So I paid them the $3,000 in cash, because that's all it is, about money. And I get a receipt for paying the $3,000. And I go out to the helicopter. I says to Benny, I says, let's go. Let's go back to Turks and Caicos. We'll figure this out over there. So we taxi out to the runway. And I'm waiting. I'm ready for takeoff. Standby. We wait about 10 minutes. We're sitting there, and there's nobody here. There's no other aircraft. There's nothing. There hasn't been forever. So I says, I got a bad feeling about this, Benny. I said, I want you to stare at the gate, and if you see one vehicle enter the ramp, or you see one person walking toward us at any time, you let me know, and we're out of here. He says, okay. So about 10 minutes in, I said, listen, I can't wait much longer. We have to get back to Turks and Caicos. It's getting dark, and we're running a fuel situation. We can't waste our fuel sitting here. He says, you're going to need to come inside and shut down again. We don't think you paid enough of a fine, so you have to come in and pay a bigger fine. And I looked at Benny and I started laughing, and I says, yeah, okay. We're gone. We're out of here. So we get out over the ocean, and about 5 minutes later, the controller says, hey, took off again without a clearance.
Yeah, but I mean, this time
shut the radio off.
You knew you weren't coming back, right?
That's correct. It was not coming back. Now it's a State Department problem. It's not me anymore. I can't fight them all at this point. So we go to Turks and Caicos. The next day we go to Dominican Republic, back to the original airport where I landed with the original 10 people a week and a half ago. So little did I know that the Haitian authorities were tracking us at that point, and they called to the Dominican authorities that they wanted us arrested as soon as we landed and the aircraft confiscated. And they said, those pilots are international fugitives. We want them arrested immediately. So the Dominican authorities said, we don't honor your request, and they're welcome to come here anytime they want. And they hung up the phone. So when we landed back in the airport in Dominican Republic, it was all the same people that I had met a week and a half ago in the middle of the night. And they're standing there with their arms out. Welcome back. You know, the Haitians wanted us to arrest you and all these other things and confiscate the aircraft. But we told them, no, we're not going to do it. Yeah, there you go. So that became my moniker on
There it is right there. International fugitive.
The international fugitive. That's and then those were all the other aircraft. Yeah. So I became known as the international fugitive from that moment on. And so every time they called me, they'd say, where's the international fugitive right now? What's the international fugitive doing? So it became a joke up in Tallahassee. So we stayed there for about a week. Couldn't get anything going. I hired a lawyer, the State Department, everybody. And they were working on getting this rescue permit that no one on earth knows that they exist, but apparently they can make it up as they go along. So it was getting close to Easter by now, and Benny is a deacon in the church, and he's like, Tony, I really want to go back. I have commitments for Mass. I really need to go back. And I says, all right, well, there's no point sitting here in the Dominican Republic. We flew back to Fort Lauderdale, and he went and did his Easter services. And in the meantime, the whole week we're working on State Department, embassy, talking to the ambassador, the embassy people back and forth, trying to get this all straightened out. And I guess about a week later, I was driving into work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang, and he said, did you check your email? I says, no, I'm driving to work. He says, check your email right now. So I checked my email. There's a rescue permit in my email. I says, they made up a rescue permit. It's like a regular flight plan, and it says rescue permit on it with our aircraft number. They made it somewhere. So he says, you got your rescue permit. How soon can you go to Haiti? I says, well, we'll leave today. So I called Benny up. He goes, I was just about to call you to find out if you heard anything. I says, as a matter of fact, I just did. We just got the rescue permit. He goes, we did? I go, yeah, get here as soon as you can. We're heading back to Haiti. So we went down there and landed in Cape Haitian, and all the same people that were there that wanted to arrest us. Welcome back. Oh, here's our rescue permit. Oh, you have a rescue permit. That's wonderful. And we started on from that point. And we set up the landing zone. We had already had security forces in place down there to guard the landing zone and to retrieve the people that needed to be retrieved from the website. And we started, I think the first day we did 4 flights. And after that, I bumped it up to five round trips a day. Back and forth to Port-au-Prince. And then I ended up getting like 3 more helicopters. So we were leapfrogging back and forth all day long. And we ended up rescuing 700 people. And only 1 helicopter got shot up. So they were shooting at us. It's just they weren't hitting us. I just kept... Yeah, only 1, but he strayed into an area where we were getting our intel. Stay away from this area, stay away from that area. Let's move. This area is in trouble over here. There's gunfire going on over here. So if you paid attention to the intel, and fortunately they went wide and they went over the area where there was heavy clashes going on and heavy gunfire, and they got shot up. So that was it. But nobody got hurt.
Man, that's absolutely a crazy story, Tony. I mean, you're coming from, flying law enforcement and Medevac up
Yeah.
in New Jersey to, starting your own private company, doing the civilian stuff, to all of a sudden immersing yourself into, some geopolitical nightmare. And it sounds like you guys, did everything right and it all worked out. I mean, that's absolutely nuts. Where does everybody find you? What's your websites? How do people find you?
TropicAirRescue.com. We have a membership program that covers, if you go to the Bahamas, you could be covered for membership by the day, by the month, or by the year. So if you're there on a long-term residence, you'll be covered. We respond to members' calls for help. So if you're not a member, it's we usually don't respond out there. However, since we're a fledgling organization, if you call us, I don't say no to people. It's just that you have to pay the entire fee up front, which is quite substantial depending on where you are out there. If you're a member, you don't pay anything other than your membership until we bill your insurance company on the other end. So the advantages to being a member are you pick up the phone and call, we respond immediately. You're not a member, you have to pay for the trip before we respond out there because we don't know who you are. We don't know what your insurance capabilities are. And as a member, you have to join, you have to produce your passport, you have to produce your insurance card back in the United States. So we vet you before we actually go out and get you.
All right, great stuff. And so before we leave, Tony, I just want to show you one thing, and I want you to tell me exactly what it is we're looking at right here.
My life. I've done plenty of I know I've made mistakes.
I do.
But I've always
that was my motion picture debut.
So this is the show Succession on HBO. I mean, this
on
is
HBO,
one of the greatest shows ever made.
Right.
And you're somehow involved. Who would have known?
I appeared in the episode 3 times as the helicopter pilot.
And then check out this amazing shot right here. There's so many awesome helicopter scenes in this TV show.
And you'll see it's a wonderful B model also. And that's me landing the helicopter at one of the scenes. There's me right there in the seat.
Oh man, who's that good-looking dude right there?
That's me, yeah.
Superstar.
It's my motion picture debut.
Oh man, I love it, Tony. I think you said it all, brother. That's great stuff. That's a crazy story. I'm glad I got to come down there and visit you guys and check out your cool operation. And man, I'm glad that you were a resource for our United States government to go in and save 10 people at the beginning, and then it sounds like hundreds in the end with no major issues other than poor Benny getting dragged away like it was all over for him. But it sounds like he turned out okay too. So thanks so much for coming on, man, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you. Thanks for doing a wonderful service. What you do, it's very, very helpful. I enjoy watching your videos, especially when it comes to analysis of the accidents. I really think that's important in the industry, that we learn from other people's mistakes. I know I watch them constantly, yours and other ones, because it's always good to know how other people make mistakes. So we try not to make the same mistakes. That's what this business is all about.
100%, man. I mean, it's completely a wasted mistake the mistakes are going to happen. They are. Hopefully they're getting reduced, but it's a wasted mistake if the industry can't learn from it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks again for the kind words, and fly safe, my man.
All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it all. Thank you.